Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are doing well. Today we're doing another video about track days, and today I'm going to bring you 10 must-haves for a track day. Now of course this is a very subjective topic. What my top 10 are going to be isn't going to be your top 10. But the way I'm going to approach this is that if you went to a track day, you would not be able to get by without having these things. And for this list, of course it's easy to justify everything, but it's also just as easy to kick every single thing off this list for something else. With that said, again, this is my top 10. Number 1, wood. This is an assortment of wood. I'm talking about 1x4s, 2x4s, 2x6s, whatever it is, bring it along because there's gonna be a use for it somehow. Specifically 1 or 2x4s, this is gonna help when you're parking your car in the paddock. You never wanna put your parking brake on after a track session because that hot pad on that hot rotor is going to transfer some brake pad material and you're going to have a vibration. So you never wanna do that. So whenever you pull into the paddock, it's not always gonna be level and there's gonna be two situations here. Number 1, your parking spot in the paddock is gonna be uphill, so when you're parking, you actually want to run over your 2x4 and then let it roll back and it'll stop it that way. The second situation is if you're parked and the paddock is downhill, you want to just be able to pull right up to that 2x4 and the car's gonna be able to stop that way. Now you're gonna say just put the car in gear and shut it off, but there are moments where you're gonna need to have the car on, and this is the situation where you're gonna need a piece of wood. Not only that, if you're trailing your car to the track, you're gonna need a platform or a piece of wood of some kind so that the front end of your trailer can have something to jack up on and also rest on for the weekend or the day that you're there. Number 2, tire pressure gauge. Now you might be thinking, why not an air compressor as well? Most of the time tracks will have air on site for you to use, but a tire pressure you're always going to need to bleed down the tires because as your tire temperatures increase on track, the pressure is going to go up and you're going to need to be able to bleed them down. Number 3, and that's a hand tool set. It can just be any generic hand tool set with wrenches, sockets, pliers, screwdrivers. At some point of the track day, you're going to need a tool to do something because you never know what's going to come up. And within that toolkit, you're going to need two very important tools. You're going to need a torque wrench and a breaker bar. The torque wrench is so that you can tighten down your lug nuts properly, and the breaker bar is so that you can loosen the lug nuts to take your wheels off if you need to. Now normally I would say bring an impact gun, but that's just something not everyone has, and that's why bringing the breaker bar will do the job just fine. Number 4, that's a hydraulic jack, and I'm going to include jack stands with that as well. In order to take off your wheels, you're going to have to lift your car up, and you can't do that unless you have a jack. And of course, for the safety aspect, anytime you're getting under your car or putting any parts of your body into the car, you should be putting your car on jack stands. Number 5, zip ties and or tape. Now I'm cheating a little bit here because these are two completely different items, but they kind of serve the same purpose. Either you bring one or the other, or if you want to, go ahead and bring both. Anything can happen at the track, and when you have zip ties and tape, you can solve just about any problem. I can't count how many times I've needed a zip tie or tape to hold something down or hold something together. These things are cheap and they're small, so they're easy to carry around. Whatever you do, go ahead and bring some of that along. You or your friends are going to be happy that you did. Number 6, and that's fluids. Now what that fluid consists of, and what I think is the most important, are engine oil and brake fluid. Now naturally engines burn a little bit of oil, and when you're tracking it, of course you're accelerating that process. Now there are going to be times throughout the day or the weekend where you need to top off, so it's going to be important to have 1 or 2 quarts with you at all times. On top of that, brake fluid is going to be super important. If you run into an issue with your braking system where you need to bleed the brakes or flush the brakes, you're going to need to have some brake fluid with you. And as a general rule of thumb, you're always going to want to have some kind of high temp racing brake fluid. If you're going to be prepping your car for a track day, that should be the number 1 thing that you're doing, is putting high temp brake fluid in there. Number 7, funnels. This is something that is so small, but when you forget it, it causes the biggest headache. When you're trying to add engine oil or top off the brake fluid, it is the worst when you don't have a funnel to do that. You have to sit there with your hands shaking and you could potentially miss and you end up spilling. It happens. So don't forget to bring a funnel. I've had to borrow one plenty of times. Number 8, shop towels. Now this one kind of ties into the last few of fluids and a funnel. You're gonna need to have a way to clean things up. There's always gonna be something to clean. There's always gonna be something to wipe down. Again, this is one of those things where I've had to ask and borrow to use so many times. Now I bring my own giant box of blue shop towels. Number 9, an easy up tent. Now this one is a little bit bulkier, it's a little bit more expensive, but some of these track days can get super hot, and it's gonna be pretty important to get yourself out from under that sun. Now I did have a tent, somehow I lost it, but the homies will bring their own tents, so I kind of use theirs and just don't really bother to bring mine anymore. Number 9, bring a chair. Track days are long days, and a lot of times you'll be under the hot sun. Driving is a very physically demanding activity, So you're gonna be tired, and having a place to sit is gonna be super important. It's one of those things that you overlook, and when you find yourself walking aimlessly around with tired legs, you're gonna be looking for somewhere to sit. And because I've been to enough track days, I have an honorable mention. Number 11 is gonna be a scooter or a bike. The amount of walking you do in a track day or track weekend is actually pretty insane. When we're with NASA, we go to classes and debriefs all the time, and when you're walking from the paddock all the way to the classroom back to the paddock, if you have to go to the bathroom, sometimes these distances are very far, and you end up racking a lot of steps throughout the day or the weekend. If you find yourself in that position, the best thing that you can do is get yourself a scooter. It doesn't even have to be electric, it can just be a manual scooter. A bicycle works as well. These things are going to be a lifesaver when you're trying to get yourself from one spot to another in a short amount of time. So that's my list of 10 must-haves for a track day. Let me know what you think. Did you agree with some of the items? Did you disagree? What would you do? Because everyone does this just a little bit differently. Again, this list could be ginormous. There are tons and tons of other things that I would love to bring. This would be the list for me. So put it down in the comments section below. What are the must-haves? What do you absolutely need when you go to a track day? We could potentially be having some EG or TSX content very soon here. I'm heading up to Minnesota next weekend to get some work done on the EG and hopefully get some work in with the boys on the TSX as well. But with that said, that's going to do it for this video. So if you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to stay up to date with the happenings on the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Questions and comments, they can go down below. And if you want to help out the channel, sharing the video definitely helps. Until next time, stay safe, stay smooth. I'll see you guys in the next video.